Everyone, how are you doing? I hope you are all fine. My lovely students, today I want to solve these questions before starting new lesson. Please open your book, page 169. Review listen to number 1. What does temperature measure? The answer to this question, page 167. Measure of the average energy of motion of the particles in matter. Number 2. If all particles in a metal spoon start moving faster, how had the spoon's temperature changed? The correct answer to this question, increased temperature. Number 3. What do we call the energy emitted by the sun? The answer to this question, solar energy. Number 5. The particles into pieces of chocolate have the same average energy of motion. One piece has more mass than the other. Which piece is at a higher temperature? A. The piece with more mass. B. The piece with less mass. C. The piece with more thermal energy. D. They are the same temperature. The correct choice, D. D. They are the same temperature. Please write down on your book. Okay, my students, the questions are solved. And I want to move on to a new lesson. Listen to page 172. How thermal energy is transferred. Conduction. Question. What is the heat? Heat have two definitions. Choose whichever comes easy to you. Heat, the transfer of thermal energy from one substance to another. Or the transfer of thermal energy from hot matter to cold matter. Heat, the transfer thermal energy from one substance to another substance. The transfer thermal energy from hot matter to cold matter. When you touch an icicle, some of the thermal energy in your hand is transferred or moved to the icicle. Your hand gets colder. The icicle gets warmer. This transfer of thermal energy, which makes you feel cold or warm. This is heat. Thermal energy is transferred in three ways. Thermal energy is transferred have three ways. Number 1, conduction. Number 1, conduction. Number 2, convection. Number 2, convection. Number 3, radiation. Number 3, radiation. Conduction. What is conduction? The transfer of thermal energy by particles bumping into each other is called conduction. This is definition of the conduction. Please underline on your book. The transfer of thermal energy by particles bumping into each other is called conduction. It's called conduction. Conduction, thermal energy is transferred by direct contact. Direct contact. Example, iron and clothes. The iron transfers thermal energy direct with the clothes. Conduction have two types, conductors and insulators. Conductors, insulators. Most metals conduct thermal energy well are called conductors. Example, spoon metal. Spoon metal is conductors, because this metal conducts thermal energy well. Spoon is hot coffee getting hotter to the end of the spoon. But number 2, another type of the conduction, insulators. Materials that don't conduct thermal energy well are called insulators. Example about insulators: glass, plastic, wood, wool, cork, paper, rubber. These are in the group of insulators because they don't conduct thermal energy well. Don't conduct. But metal spoon and pan, these are conductors. 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 Conductors because these metals conduct thermal energy well. Please look at this picture. Thermal energy moves from the burner to the pot to the water by conduction. The particles in the pot bump into nearby particles of water. The bumping makes the water particles move faster. The water gets hotter. The pot transfers thermal energy to the water. The particles in the burner bump into particles in the bottom of the pot. The bumping causes the particles in the pot to move faster. The pot becomes hotter. As the burner gets hotter, the particles in it move faster because they have more thermal energy. Another way about transfer thermal energy, number 2, convection. Number 2, convection. Convection. What is convection? The definition of the convection: the transfer of thermal energy by particles in liquids and gases move from one place to another. Please write down on your book than on your copybook. The transfer of thermal energy by particles in liquids and gases move from one place to another. Convection energy is transferred by the mass motion of molecules. In a hot air balloon, the hot gas from the fire. My students, I will talk about convection process or convection current. As the hot air or warm air, don't difference, is forced up, it warms the air. Around it. As the hot air cools, its density increases and it sinks. This process can repeat. The air can move in a circle. In a circle, warming being pushed up, cool air. Cooling, sinking, and then warming again. This process called convection process, or this pattern of movement is called a convection current. This definition of the convection current, this pattern of movement is called a convection current. Please underline on your book. Please look at this picture. The hot air moves toward the air conditioner. where it is cooled. This cycle of convection current transfers the thermal energy out of the room through the air conditioner. Cold air. The air conditioner pushes the cold air. The cold air is denser than the hot air in the room. Cold air forces the hot air around it upwards and replaces it. The thermal energy is transferred from the floor of the room to its ceiling. As the cool air warms gradually at the floor of the room, it starts to rise toward the ceiling. Please watch this video about transfer thermal energy.
How is heat transferred from a heat source to another object that is cooler? Heat is transferred to another object by three methods. Conduction. The transfer of heat between objects that are in direct contact with each other. Heat flows from a hot part to a cooler part without involving the movement of the hot part itself. Generally, conduction occurs in solids. For example, the heat transfer from the flame to the pan, and the heat transfer from the hot part of the pan into the cooler part of the pan. Convection. The transfer of heat by the movement of a heated substance. This method needs a substance that can flow in order to allow the hot substance to move easily. Therefore, convection can only occur in liquids and gases. For example, heat transfer from the hot part of water to the cooler part of water. Radiation. Unlike conduction and convection, which require a medium to transfer heat, the heat transferred by radiation does not require any medium. The heat is emitted directly from the heat source to another object that is cooler. For example, heat that is felt by someone who stands near the heat source. Although he is separated by a distance, he still feels the heat.
Okay, my students, today we have finished this lesson. Have a good day. See you soon. Goodbye.